These are players that before week 1, you should probably shop and maybe try to sell off your rosters. We're going to give you the players and tell you why we're selling them and then give you trade targets for them as well. So make these moves in your fantasy football leagues before week 1 because you probably won't regret it. All right, let's do Tre Harris first. Tre Harris, we've said this all offseason, but he's like, it's the biggest waste of a pick in fantasy football. He's not going to perform this year. And now that Keenan Allen's there, I think there's pretty much a 0% chance he does anything this year. I mean, maybe if Ladd got hurt and Tre Harris were to somehow become magically really good, then that would be the case. But Tre Harris right now, preseason rankings and the Flock expert consensus on the site is the wide receiver 62. But there's a lot of guys around him that I would just pretty much easily trade him away for. First of all, Jalen Coker is only 5 spots ahead of him. Easy. I will trade for Coker all day, every day. Christian Kirk is 4 spots ahead of him. I would trade for Christian Kirk all day, every day. Rashid Shaheed 6 spots ahead of him. Rashad Bateman 7 spots ahead of him. If you can get Bateman, Shaheed, Coker, or Christian Kirk, honestly, Keenan Allen is ranked right next to him. If you can get Keenan Allen for Tre Harris, I'm doing it. Again, very rarely do you see a wide receiver 2 in a Greg Roman offense have any sort of fantasy relevant production. It really doesn't happen. It's when it goes as far back as when he was the offensive coordinator on the San Francisco 49ers for Jim Harbaugh the first time, and then the offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens with John Harbaugh. And even last year, you saw it was Ladd McConkey and then not really anybody else. So I think Tre Harris, why we're selling him, I don't think he's going to do anything. I just think his value is going to continue to drop in fantasy football. Looking behind Tre Harris, there are some guys down here I would maybe trade for as well. Actually, it gets pretty ugly after Tre Harris. I would even be willing to take a shot on Pat Bryant, I think, before I take a shot on Tre Harris. Yeah. So, I mean, I gave you enough trade targets. You kind of get the deal. Again, we've been pretty consistent with our logic. We don't think that Tre Harris is going to be productive this year based on historical trends in that offensive system. We stand by it. If anything, Keenan Allen's the guy to have there, and even then, I think Keenan Allen's probably a waste of a pick as well.
There are a good number of Jayden Higgins truthers heading into this season, and I think down the line, I don't think it's honestly a terrible take if you want to get him as a throw-in. The thing is, there is honestly risk that Jayden Higgins ends up being like a waiver guy for the first few weeks of the season. Some people drop him, pick up other guys that are more interesting, and then you go back and reinvest in him later. He's just a guy that is going to be, in our opinion, so boom bust to start the season. I mean, you've seen Nico Collins and what he's able to do when he's fully healthy. And again, he's fully healthy to start the season this year with CJ Stroud. It's so up in the air with Jayden Higgins. The risk with Higgins heading into the season is that he, like from a skill set perspective, is basically Nico Collins. And that's like his archetype is that type of wide receiver. So really it makes you wonder, like, how is he going to fit into this scheme to start the season? Like, what is this really going to look like? He's listed as the first guy on the. He's listed as a wide receiver 2 on the depth chart in Houston. So like he will be on the field, but you just wonder how often is he going to get opportunities? Is it going to be right out the gate, or is it going to be down the line? And I think it's going to take a little bit of time for a guy like Higgins. And when you're looking at some of the other guys in his price range at wide receiver right now, there are players that are proven that in an ideal world, if Higgins were to end up producing and exceeding expectations, he would be producing at the level that these guys are expected to produce and not really any higher than that. Darnell Mooney, case in point. We've talked about Darnell Mooney as a buy before week 1. He's back healthy, most likely expected to be ready to go for week 1. If not, it will probably be week 2. You've got, I know he's old and washed up, but Cooper Kupp is a wide receiver 2 in the Seattle Seahawks defense alongside JSN. He's going to be an exclusive slot. Think Stephon Diggs in the way that he was utilized last year with the Houston Texans. Hopefully we can see something like that with Cooper Kupp this year. Michael Pittman. Josh Downs is banged up. Hopefully Josh Downs can be back by week 1. But if he's not, I mean, Michael Pittman has been the most consistent wide receiver for the Colts over the last 4 years. And he's going right around Jayden Higgins. Brandon Ayuk, I understand, because Brandon Ayuk isn't going to be back for, he's going to miss a quarter of the season. He is eyeing a week 6 return, reportedly, but that one's a little bit up in the air, so I'll give that one to you for sure. Rashad Bateman, though, Rashad Bateman in an offense with Lamar Jackson, where he actually showed some really nice flashes last year. I think had 6 games in double digits, which was a huge jump up for him. Again, I think that's probably what you're going to see from Jayden Higgins to start out, and then you can go get him for cheaper later. Jayden Higgins is not off my board for the entire year. I don't think so. But to start the season, I think it's just not a bet that I'm willing to take.
Look, if Adam Thielen is somebody that's rostered in your league and you have somebody that, or if you are somebody that has Adam Thielen, believes in Adam Thielen, I'm just going to tell you right now, I think Adam Thielen is going to be a non-factor in that offense. Early on, while they're missing Jordan Addison, sure, he could be somebody that produces for you in week 1. And so
I don't know. I feel like this is one where it's kind of a downgrade going from Carolina to Minnesota because of how much more crowded it is there.
I would tend to think the same way. I mean, but Addison's out the first couple weeks. And so.
Right, but Hawkinson.
But you still have Hawk, you still have JJ. And the thing is, if you think that he's going to if you really need like week 1, week 2 production, and you think that Adam Thielen's going to give that to you, then you can hold him. That's totally fine. I just think that there's a pretty big increase in news and hype around Adam Thielen right now because he got traded. And I think people are looking like, oh, he's going back home, so he's going to be productive there. And the thing is, like, Adam Thielen right now is not rostered in a ton of fantasy leagues, but where he is rostered, you definitely are going to be able to. He's rostered in 50% of fantasy leagues, actually. And so if you have Adam Thielen, definitely trade him. And I would probably trade Adam Thielen for almost anything at this point. He's down here in like the wide receiver 69 range, which is pretty nice. But you look at other guys in that range, like Josh Palmer on the Bills, I would much rather take a shot on this year than Adam Thielen for sure. Dante Thornton, I'm not a huge fan of. I don't think he's probably going to do anything, but I would probably take a shot on him before I take one on Thornton. Wan'Dale Robinson on the Giants, I would take a shot on. We mentioned Pat Bryant earlier. DeMario Douglas on the Pats, I would probably take a shot on before I did. Even guys like Isaac Tesla, I'd rather roster over Adam Thielen. So there's a lot of guys in that range that I feel like are more unknowns than Adam Thielen, where with Adam Thielen, we know what he's probably going to do there, and I don't think he's going to have any sort of significant role to the point that he's going to be fantasy productive. And so, again, if you really need week 1 or 2 production, you really think he's going to be week 1 or 2 productive, then sure, go ahead and try it. But in my opinion, with that, with that offense, historically, even behind J. Jeff and Hawk, like whoever that guy is, they're not going to fill an Addison role in terms of production. And when Addison's back, I mean, whoever that is going to be completely irrelevant at that point. And how much did they actually give up for Adam Thielen? I mean, they didn't give up hardly anything, probably, right? I mean, they had to have given up
It was very minimal.
I mean, so the team investment as well. It's a 7th round pick. They traded a 5th and a 4th, and Minnesota got back a 7th and a 5th. So it was a 5th round pick swap, and again, the team investment is very little here. And so I'm not counting on him doing anything this year. I think it's great that he's home in Minnesota, but in terms of our fantasy football teams, I don't think you need him on your team.
Yeah, Cedric Tillman, I really think he was the most popular guy in fantasy for 4 weeks last season, and that was about it. The only value that he was able to maintain for the rest of the year is the fact that he was able to do that. He ended up getting injured and never came back after that concussion, I think, that he suffered in the middle of week 12 against Pittsburgh. What I do want to highlight here, though, is the Jameis Winston effect, which is very, very, very real. Let's be honest, guys. When Jameis Winston is in an offense throwing it 50 times a game, you're going to have multiple wide receivers, multiple receiving assets be productive there. There's a direct correlation between Jerry Jeudy's jump of consistency, Tillman just skyrocketing up boards, and Njoku showing signs of life in that offense last year as well. Cedric Tillman in an offense now where Joe Flacco is now the quarterback. I don't think this is going to be the same Joe Flacco of 2023 if I were a betting man. I think that he'll provide passing volume. I think that this is the best case scenario for Jerry Jeudy, if you're a Jerry Jeudy truther this year, or David Njoku, if you want to be an advocate for either one of those guys. I understand it. I don't understand it with Cedric Tillman this season. He was the least efficient route runner on a consistent basis last season. He was really a guy that was being schemed up and just a recipient of volume and got multiple touchdowns, which is why he shot up boards. In weeks 8 and 9, his most productive weeks, he had 2 touchdowns against Baltimore and then 1 touchdown against the Chargers. And again, that was during the stretch that Jameis started coming in and doing a lot of damage on his end in Cleveland. So with Tillman, when you're looking at the guys that are value equivalent to him, Romeo Doubs is effectively the wide receiver 2. If you're going based off of experience, he's the wide receiver 1 heading into week 1 for the Green Bay Packers because Reed is out, Wicks is out, and Watson won't be back until the middle of the season because he tore his ACL at the end of last year. I would much rather take the shot on Romeo Doubs, again, if you're going to take like a last shot pick in your fantasy draft. And Avery mentioned Thornton and Besh earlier. Myers and his status with the Raiders is up in the air in terms of like his dedication at this point because he wants an extension. He's already requested a trade. They've been in talks with New England. Heck, by the time this video comes out, he could be gone. Or maybe he resigns. I don't know. All that to say, I would rather take the shot on one of these guys in the Raiders offense before I went and took a shot on a even worse offense in the third receiving option in Cedric Tillman. Go ahead and go for one of those 3 guys that I just mentioned. Even Leggett, honestly, now that Adam Thielen's out of that offense, we've mentioned Jalen Coker is now a viable option behind Ted McMillan. Heck, it could be Leggett. We could be wrong about Coker. It could end up being Xavier Leggett. I would rather you take the shot on Leggett than I would with Tillman.
All right, next guy, Najee Harris. I have Najee Harris on my team with Amari and Hampton. If you're handcuffing him with Hampton, I can understand why you're holding him. I'm probably not going to sell Amari and Hampton on the Najee Harris on the Flock League team, just because it is a fairly valuable handcuff to me where I have rostered a rookie running back and I have very high draft capital investment in him. However, with Najee, there are still a lot of people that think that Amari and Hampton is not going to do anything because of Najee Harris. It blows my mind, right? I could end up being wrong about this, but honestly, I do not understand. Why would the Chargers, who have plenty of team need elsewhere, by the way, use their first-round pick, a first-round pick? Do you know how big of a deal it is to invest a first-round pick in a player in the NFL? It is a huge deal. Why on earth would they do that?
If they were going to give the ball to Najee
just to give the ball to Najee Harris.
It makes zero sense.
They literally, that logic is so backwards that I can't even tell you. It doesn't make any sense, and so I refuse to let myself go there. I refuse to let my mind go there to where Najee Harris is somehow going to limit Amari and Hampton. And is it going to be a committee? Isn't every backfield besides pretty much the Rams a committee in the NFL? Yeah. I mean, there are very few backfields at this point in time that aren't like a 60-40 or 65-35 split at this point.
In terms of snap share.
Right.
But I mean, touches, like relevant touches, there's plenty of heavy bell cows in the league still.
I mean, exactly. Look at Jonathan Taylor. What was Jonathan Taylor's snap share? I know he led opportunity, but actually those other running backs, even though they are pretty much no names, they got a lot of work there in Indianapolis last year. And actually, you saw a lot of it. Jonathan Taylor was off the field in a bunch of situations. What was his snap shares last year? Go through that.
96, 52, 88, 73, 81, 72, 83, 90, 96, 89, 68, 76, 88, 72.
So again, you've got games in the 70s in there all the time. All of the while, Jonathan Taylor's first in opportunity share in the NFL last year. And it just goes to show that he doesn't have to play 80, 90% of the snaps to still have all of the opportunity there. Yeah, they're going to use different types of backs on different types of plays. But who gets the valuable touches there? And I don't think it's going to be Najee. Again, why would they have spent a first on Hampton if they were going to give the ball to Najee? If they're going to give the ball in the red zone to Najee? If they're going to use they're not using Najee in the passing game.
We're trying to overcomplicate a backfield that does not need to be overcomplicated, guys. Like they brought on Najee Harris before the NFL draft even was a thing, before they even selected Amari and Hampton, before they even knew that he was going to be available there. Najee Harris was an insurance play if no one at running back was on the board at their pick that they wanted or were interested in. And then they got their guy.
And he's getting paid $5 million a year. So $1.5 million base on his salary, and then like 3.7 in signing. So $5 million is not bad, but it's not anything where it's like, oh man, we totally screwed up on this guy. He's on a 1-year deal. So look, Hampton's the guy there. I have no doubt about it. With Najee, again, if you're not using him to handcuff Hampton, I'm fine moving off him because he's healthy now and his price is going up a little bit because he's not on the injured reserve and he's probably going to play week 1 according to their GM. Look, I would just go ahead and I don't think he's going to be somebody you're going to want to start this season. So,
I think one of the biggest things that we kind of fall for the trap to start the season is you draft a guy who you project out for the entire course of the season to exceed their ADP, but you don't realize or you don't think about like when is that actually going to happen in the course of the season. And for a guy like Colston Loveland, where he's actually not even the tight end 1 on the depth chart right now heading into the season, I think it's going to take a little bit of time. And while there's already a lot of questions and risk and like what opportunity really is he going to get as a rookie there because it's so crowded, not to mention Luther Burden, we're trying to figure out who the wide receiver 1 is there, even between DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. And then we have to look at Luther Burden and Colston Loveland to see who's actually going to get the opportunity there. And that's just completely writing off Cole Kmet, which I think long-term we should be writing off Cole Kmet. But to start the season, the seasoned veteran with a significant contract, honestly, when they extended him a couple years back, is Cole Kmet, and I think he might get a good chunk of the snap share there to start the year. So for Colston Loveland going right now in the price range of some of those other tight ends like Njoku, Evan Ingram, number one, I think those guys are just better shots to take than Loveland to start the season because those guys, unlike Loveland, are going to be debatably like top 2 targets in their offense right out the gate, and Loveland's going to have to fight tooth and nail to get really any opportunity to begin with at all. So look, at the end of the day, I think a lot of people expect this to be like the next Sam Laporta. Colston Loveland could be the next Sam Laporta in a Ben Johnson offense. I mean, I think you guys are onto something for sure long term. I don't think it's going to be week 1. I just don't see that playing out because, again, like even with Sam Laporta in a Ben Johnson offense in Detroit, Sam Laporta was effectively the starting tight end 1 in that offense right out the gate, and Loveland is not. So I think we need to be a little patient with him. If you move him off before week 1, you're probably going to get more than what you can get him for in the like a few weeks from then, when he still is like kind of getting his feet under him, getting his feet up under him. What does that even mean?
Yeah, I mean, you can do that. You can try it, yeah.
He's basically trying to make his way and work his way up the depth chart there. So it's going to take a little bit of time with him. Just be patient and buy him later at a discount.
We said this, I think 2 weeks ago before this news even dropped. I think a couple weeks ago we told you that Joe Mixon was one of the worst picks in fantasy football. And since then, did you hear when they asked the GM? First of all, they put him on IR. But did you hear when they asked the GM about him? He was like,
I can't comment on it.
Nah, I'm not going to say anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I this is why I've been saying this for a month and a half at this point, 2 months, that I'm not touching him, is because I am convinced he's not playing this year. Like, I really think it's not I think it's not good that he's had this nagging injury that will not get better and is causing him to miss time. Yep. Like, at that point, the options are probably going to be surgery or nothing else.
The best ballers are going to be dying because, they all start in like April.
Yeah, and they all pick Joe Mixon in the
like fourth round.
Yeah. So, look, a lot of you guys are going to try to hold out hope on Joe Mixon, keep him on your roster. The problem is a lot of you guys invested especially in home leagues. If you invested a fairly high pick in Joe Mixon, you can't really afford to take that loss. And so you really need to move off of Joe Mixon now. And the nice thing about moving off of Joe Mixon is pretty much, the expert consensus have moved him down a lot, but you can still get Austin Eckler, Cam Scadaboo, Trey Benson, Zach Charbonnet even. I mean, you can still get those guys. Javonte Williams is a starting back on his team, and Joe Mixon isn't playing this year. Like, that's where we're at now. And so in terms of the guys you can get, even at wide receiver, you've got guys there like Luther Burden, like Brandon Ayuk. If you're going to take a shot on an injured guy, do one that's going to play this year. Darnell Mooney, we already talked about. Keon Coleman. I think if you can get anything for Joe Mixon at this point, you do it. Because, again, I've held this belief for multiple weeks now. I don't think he's going to play this year. And unfortunately, if you drafted him, I don't think you can afford to let him not play for the first probably at least 8 weeks of the season. Trade him to somebody else and let them tank their fantasy playoff chances because of it. I don't think he's going to come back and be this crazy league winner either. I really just don't see it happening. And it doesn't typically happen with running backs that enter the season injured. And so I would just move off of Joe Mixon now and see what you can get for him. And again, look, if you want to hold into these guys going into week 1, these are just guys that we're moving off of. This is just a suggestion, so you don't have to get upset. But again, we do have pretty good reasons to believe why these guys might not have as much value after week 1 as they do pre-week 1. And so we're just going to go ahead and move them now. Do us a huge favor. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like on the video. It helps us out a ton. Just hit the button. Really, really helps. And then make sure you're subscribed as well. If you play fantasy football and you'd like help with your fantasy football season throughout the entire year, we've got you. We're going to be posting videos on this channel 5-6 times a week. So make sure you're subscribed as well so you get all those videos. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.